#1 desirable. I do what I want when I want and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air, that's how I roll. I got tons of soul, I'm a true collectible. Famous, also famous, #1 desirable. I do what I want when I want and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air, that's how I roll. I got t-shirts, so I don't care about no gold. Better, so much better, flipping incredible. Always on the show, so they know that I still got it. And I never feel sorry, yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. When I hit and come like my fuse and then ba-bum. Later, see you later, I'm about to blow this up. You can sing or sing if you want, I know you want it. It's always kinda funny, yeah, cause you know I'm a superstar in the sky to lead you on. Haters gonna hate, it's a proof of how they love.
Where did it all begin for Charlotte Potts?
My family's like huge football fans, and my mum and dad started like a local grassroots club. My brother had a team, and then as soon as I was like showing how obsessed I was literally 3-year-old with a ball at my feet, along like at the side of his games, and they were like, when she gets older, we need to start a team for her age. So I was literally 4 or 5 years old when I started with the boys team.
So, how many brothers and sisters?
A brother and cousins. Both boys and girls were cousins who also played football.
So with you, was it all like, with you specifically, was it like, were you all football, or was there other sports that you kind of were into and you liked, or was it, or you were good at? Was it just football?
Every sport.
Everything.
Every sport. So, but when I was a teenager, I started to take up boxing also.
Yeah, I've seen you doing, like, putting some videos and stuff up on Instagram and stuff like that with boxing. Like, is that something that you were like good at, where you could have gone professional to that side of the things? Or was
probably, I mean, it's always been football. Football's my obsession. And I mean, if I reflect, I think, because obviously boxing's kind of like you're by yourself and you've got to have that internal motivation. And that's something that I've always had. So if I did have boxing as my obsessive sport when I was younger, I think it all comes down to habits, doesn't it? And when you're training, when you make them basic habits, your instincts, that's when you get good. That's when you're good. So yeah, I think if I did take up boxing when I was younger, I could have been really good.
So how old were you when you first started playing for like your local team?
Football?
Yeah, just kids, like
5.
Local team.
Yeah, 5.
That's relatively young. Well, it is young, isn't it? Because like I think around here I think they start under 7s or under 8s. But then you'll always have, I reckon, at least every year there's always like a 5-year-old who will play sort of 2 years up, because they're a bit better than what they should be for their age.
That's what it was. It was like an under 6 league, but I was the year younger.
Yeah. So was there girls teams around, like when you were coming up? Really nothing?
Not really, until I was like maybe 11, 12-year-old, when I was forced to stop playing. That's when I had to go searching for girls teams, and I didn't really want to, but
yeah,
I had to do.
It's a weird thing. They let the girls, I'm basing this on like my local area, which is Cardiff, but they let the girls play with the boys all the way through from under 7s, and then all of a sudden under 12s comes and they just cut them off and say, right, no, the girls can't play no more, which I do, and I understand the reasons why, of course I do, but then equally you're kind of just cutting off like a whole generation of female footballers who, if they haven't got, depending on your local area, if you haven't got a girls team to go to, or you haven't got a connection to a local academy or whatever it may be, then you're kind of losing all those players every time a new season starts. And like I did a show recently where I talked about how many young male footballers are lost, but when you think about it, in the UK, you must lose so many female footballers every time the season starts. You lose under 12s or whatever, under 11s. You just lose like almost a whole generation of footballers, apart from the ones who've maybe already been spotted by the local women's Premier League team or Championship team or Super League team or whatever. But like for those ones who haven't quite got to that level, and also I'm sure you'd agree, like you change a lot from say under 11s, under 12s to 18. Like you change as a person, you change as a player. It's just like a massive, I don't know what the right word is, but like you can lose so many footballers automatically. So what did you do? So like under 12s, you were told you couldn't play in the boys team no more, or?
So for club team, I couldn't play for my club boys team, but I still played for my school team. But for the club team, I went to a local girls grassroots team, which I was quite lucky because we had a very good team, and it was like almost all of the players that went into Sunderland and Newcastle when we found out that we should have went to an academy. But we didn't necessarily get a challenge. We were hammering teams like 20-0 every week. And because obviously when I played for the boys, I'm a physical and aggressive player as it is. So when I wasn't getting any of that physicality back or a challenge, it was really bugging me. So I don't know, like just.
But I suppose if you like that physical battle, and it's taken away, like you're going to miss that even, aren't
and
you?
that's why I didn't want to go play girls football, because I mean, sometimes I watch boys playing football against girls and they're scared to go in for a tackle, but that wasn't the case with me, because I used to like purposely get angry to make them want to come and tackle me hard. So like I used to get that physical challenge from them, but I didn't get it from the girls, so I didn't really want to play girls football. So I used to relish the times when I used to be able to play for my school team, because my secondary PE teacher like wrote to the FA and I was still allowed to play up until I was 14 in year 8. In 13, 14, that's when I started to see the physical difference. But I still kept up and I used to love it. But even when I was younger, I played for the boys year 6 team and year 3.
You were not just playing, like with the boys, you were one of the better players by the sounds of it as well.
Yeah, I was in year 3 with the year 6s and I used to love it.
Did the boys accept you because you were good at football straight away, or was there a bit of pushback? Like I'm on about like in, like those early where kids are kids and it's like, oh, as a girl, why is she playing? Or was they were all right because you were good at it?
My teammates used to accept me, but like the opposing teams, I used to get like bullied so bad, like really, really nastily as well. Like I used to get man beast and everything. There was actually one time for the school team when I was in year 8 and I scored like a 30-yarder against a really good team who had like Sunderland Academy players on. And I got bullied badly in that game, and I thought, you know what it is? I'll let my actions do the talking. And when I scored that 30-yarder, I turned to them and I like grabbed my shorts as though like I was grabbing private parts of a boy. I says, man beast, I went, I've got more balls than you. Just to rub it in their faces, because it's just, there's no need for the nastiness. Do you know what I mean?
No, I think when you get that sort of thing, like you get comments and you get, it's bullying, isn't it? And I think when you get that sort of stuff, it's difficult to then control your emotions when you kind of shove it back in their face within, the sport that you're doing. It's difficult not to say something back, and it's difficult not to, like you say.
And that's something that once I went into academy football, and I mean, I played for Sunderland Women when I was 15, 16. And that's something that really held me back, the emotional control. But to be honest though, sometimes your weakness can turn into your biggest strength, and I think that's probably one of my biggest strengths now.
That's interesting, because then, like I said just now, like you develop and you change so much as a person from like, sorry, from like say 11, 12 up to even, 18, 19, like you just change so much in terms of how you look at the world, how you deal with things, how you react to things. And I think that's always going to have an impact in it. And especially like with you're a physical player who likes to get stuck in and likes to have that battle. All footballers have got who've got those sort of traits to their game. They tend to live on the edge a little bit of of anger, of frustration, just a bit of everything. Yeah, 100%.
I think this is where a lot of people actually like misunderstand me, because they don't realize I'm actually quite calm and controlled. So when I've came over here into a different country, and obviously the language barrier and stuff, they try to have a joke and say, "Oh, angry woman," because they've seen videos and seen me play angry, like aggressively, but I'm not angry.
Yeah.
I explained it on my Instagram not long ago. Actually, it's like, imagine driving a Lamborghini and you don't actually know how to drive. You cannot drive a car of that caliber if you can't manage your emotions.
No, that's very, very true. So when did you get when did you go from like parks football and school football to then like, professional clubs and that side of things?
I was at Newcastle Centre of Excellence for 1 year when I was 14 to 15, and the Sunderland Women's manager wanted me when I was like 15, because I turned 16 in the September, so you can play women's football from then. That wasn't really a good decision, because I went and just sat on the bench for a whole season, and that totally knocked my confidence. My fitness knocked completely. So then I went on to Newcastle Women, and I had 3 seasons with them. We got promotion. I really enjoyed it there, because I played centre mid. I had a lot of freedom, scoring goals. My confidence like shot through the roof again. And then I went back to Sunderland, and I was working my way to the first team, and that's when we were like reaching for the Super League. But my career has literally went in spirals and up mountains and into the valleys, and I mean, I would say there's been a lot of failures, but right now I don't really see them as failures, because I just think that like you're never gonna have a straight road. You've just got to enjoy. So you learn more from the times where you need to go down a little bit to then come back up, not just as a footballer but as a person.
100%. I did a show recently with Darren Pearce, and we were talking about kind of that. And so, because someone had asked me the question, if you could go back to like when you were 16, knowing what you know now, would you do it? And I said no, because all the mistakes that I've made, and all the things that went wrong, all the things that went right, all those different twists and turns, that's what makes you who you are now. And I think if you kind of take those away, you're not going to be the same person, because you develop and you learn and you adapt because of things, more so of things going wrong than things going right.
Yeah, that is true. But then also, if you're knowing what you know now when you're 16, I mean, I think my ambition was always to play for England. And I think knowing what I know now, I think me personally now, physically, mentally, emotionally, I'm well capable of playing for England, but I'm not at the right place. I'm not at the right club to be able to play for it. So I think if you ask me that question now, if I could go back to 16, absolutely.
What would you do? What would you do differently?
With the wisdom and the knowledge that I've got now, train like an absolute animal consistently, with emotional control, tracking my wellness daily. So 2 years ago, when COVID hit, a really crazy injury hit. I fell off my bike, and I couldn't see a physio. So for 2 months, like I couldn't walk, couldn't run. I had to track my own wellness to be able to trial and error, recovery, rehab. And finally, when I seen a physio and I started to get fit again, before I went to Hibs, I don't know, just trialing this spreadsheet that I created and tracking my own wellness, it helped me understand so much around mental health, around nutrition, around sleep, and how it all links, about brain activity. So yeah, I think if I tracked my own wellness when I was 16 and I trained like the animal that I train like now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think understanding your mental health as well as your physical health is really important to like being successful, because I think a lot of people focus only on, if they're a footballer, they focus only on, you know, training like a beast and all these different things, but then maybe they don't take into account things like the injuries or knockbacks and things like that, the effect it can have on your mental health. And if your mental health's not tip top, in the long term, it'll have an effect on your physical health as well. And I think it's I do find it really interesting that the kind of correlation between the two.
Having said that, if I wasn't kind of clinging on to that England ambition, I hope. I mean, I'm 27, so it's very, very unlikely now. I mean, but you never say never. I think I wouldn't change and go back to being 16-year-old, because it's quite nice when you experience your mental health go up and down, like the physical changes that you feel. You kind of understand the scientific side of it, having not actually studied in a university about it, but knowing the experiences that you feel within your body and self-educating about those experiences, I think is very interesting. So I've kind of learned to enjoy the journey just day by day.
Yeah.
And that's why I come abroad, because sometimes when you're at home, you're thinking too much about the past, about the future, what could be, what could have been. But when you come away and you just take the time to learn and reflect daily, and you really live mindfully, it gets so much easier to just train with intention.
Yeah, I think as well, like when you're living at home, you've got like that, like a comfort thing, haven't you? In terms of you've always kind of been there, you've always around the same people. And I think sometimes moving away from that can also help you develop, whether it's mentally, physically, career-wise. I think coming out of that comfort zone can be a good thing sometimes, but you know, it depends on the person. I was interested, like, what was you like in school, like with the academic side of things? Were you just not interested in that sort of thing?
Not interested. Absolutely shocking. I was sport. Just wanted to play sport. Just wanted to play football all of the time. I didn't want to learn. Although I did, when I was a teenager, I did have a profoundly deaf boyfriend. So it was strange, because being with him, it allowed me to I actually isolated myself a lot. And I kind of lived in the deaf world, where I just like, but it helped me understand so much, because I used to observe visually. So I didn't listen to people, but I used to watch people. And it really helped with emotional intelligence, which at the time I thought made me a really bad communicator, because I'm not necessarily a listener. But listener with my ears, but I listen with my eyes. I watch everything, which in turn is really, really good for when you come on the pitch, because you're watching people. So when people's emotions spike, to be able to be a leader and calm them down.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. It's interesting, like I said to you just before we started recording, about my son, and kind of he needs things explained a certain way in order for him to, you know, to pick it up and to get going. And then once he gets going, he's fine. And I think everybody learns differently, but it sounds like your experience with your boyfriend meant that you almost, to a certain extent, you kind of developed that skill because you spent so much time with him, and like you say, you kind of lived in that world of where your boyfriend couldn't hear and stuff like that.
Silence. I was
So
also
yeah,
in a silent world.
yeah. So and it's interesting, isn't it? Because like I'm sure you learned to, and your boyfriend obviously had to. You learn to read emotions and body language, and you see changes in people's emotions, body language, whatever. And that's going to do, like, as you get older, that's always going to be a beneficial trait, or it's a skill, really. And I think I find that really interesting, because like you mentioned how it could benefit you on the pitch, but I think also, say, like when you finish playing, I think that's beneficial if you wanted to be a coach, or if you wanted to be a coach, coaching kids or something like that. You'd be able to pick up on things which maybe other people wouldn't necessarily pick up on.
It's obviously even became beneficial as soon as I've come to it's the first time I've lived in a different country with a different language. I've lived in Canada and America, but never a different language, and I've never realized how beneficial sign language actually is when you can't understand the words, because you're looking for all of the communication through the actions instead of the words. So I'm being complimented how like observant I am without actually understanding what's being said. And this was one of the reasons why I wanted to come to a different country with a different language, to push myself out my comfort zone in that sense. But going back to your question about the academics, I think as a teenager, I used to just look for too many distractions, because I was so willing to just neglect my mind and like not confront my fears, not confront my doubts. It's only as I'm getting older that you learn from your doubts and your fears.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think as a teenager, you don't necessarily, if you're afraid of something, or you're concerned about something, or you've got like anxiety building up over something, you learn to control it, but not necessarily in a way that you would learn to control it as an adult. So like as an adult, you can kind of get your head around using things like fear and anxiety and pain as motivators, as a learning curve and things like that. But as a teenager, you don't.
I think as a teenager, you try to push it away.
Yeah, of course.
You don't want it.
Try and avoid it, don't you?
So going back to your question, if you could force yourself to be 16 again, I think force yourself to understand your fears, force yourself to really understand your mind.
Yeah. And I think like my big thing was always when I used to think if I could go back and be like 14, 15, 16 and know what I know now, was so that I could do better academically, simply because I was pretty capable. I just couldn't be bothered for a variety of reasons, and I kind of wasted the intelligence that I did have into, and not through like I had some stuff happened, but like stuff happens to everyone, and I think I wish that I could have perhaps embraced the just school as a whole a bit better than I did.
Me too.
Because I think you can get stuff out of it later in life, even if it's something like, if you decide you want to go on and do a different career, if you've already got that basis of the GCSEs or whatever it may be, because you did all right in school, it's easier to go on and do that. You haven't got to go and
fight your way through.
Fight your way through and do certain things that you didn't do very well in. Or
I'm sick of the excuse of like you can't get this job because you don't have the piece of paper when you've got the knowledge there. It really, really frustrates me, because in the same sense of like, I'm trying to fight in a sport to get independence and find my way through. Like I've just recently finished living at home at 27-year-old, and I couldn't even go and do a degree because my parents earned so much money, so I couldn't even get student finance to do a degree that I wanted. And it's just, it does bug you.
Yes, that's frustrating, because like you're there, you want to go and further yourself, further your education, and you're just kind of held back by something which is out of your hands completely.
And I mean, when you said pushing yourself out your comfort zones, that's how you do that, through education, through understanding. I mean, this is why I box, because with football now, I mean, as I mentioned, how long I played football, since I was 4 or 5 years old. It's been a very long time since I've actually pushed myself out my comfort zone in football. Every environment that I've went to, I've got an abundance of confidence, because like there's the saying, the more you know, the less that you fear. But when I go box, I don't know the sport, I don't know the technique. So it really forces me to like think, and I have coaches giving me constructive criticism all the time. And it makes you think, I don't like that, but that's good, because that's what makes you better.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I'm not getting that from football. So if I get it from boxing, I get the mental side.
Why not? How do you take criticism generally?
I never used to be good with it, but I love it now.
So when
The
you
only
were
way to learn.
when you were like a young footballer and you were with the Centre of Excellence, then you were Sunderland and Newcastle and then Sunderland, like what if your coaches would criticize you or whatnot? How would you have taken that?
I think because I was a very emotional player when I was a teenager, I didn't take criticism very well, and I don't think coaches necessarily understood me as a person. I was a very complex individual, so I never got criticism given to me the right way that I needed it. Yeah, I kind of needed it sugar coated, but because I was such a strong, confident presence, they felt the need to give me it like throw it in my face.
Yeah.
And that it crippled me, because I was emotional deep down, and I needed that arm over my shoulder. Actually, one boxing coach described me as a bit of a coconut, because I've got a hard shell, but I'm such a softie deep down.
But then it's interesting, isn't it? Because you're like quite a combative, physical player, and aggressive and things like that. People automatically assume that that's what you're like off the pitch. So Charlotte's like that on the pitch, so she would prefer it if I just tell her straight. Whereas that's actually not the case. So like how many other players around the world are similar, where they're quite quiet and shy, and maybe the coach will be kind of sugarcoating it a little bit, or they'll, whatever, they'll do it differently. But actually that person would prefer it if they were just told, no, just tell me exactly straight. If I'm crap, tell me I'm crap, and etc. Because what it comes down to is every individual is different. They need different things, and they learn in different ways. And I just think sometimes, particularly I do think in football, the little I know myself, and then from speaking to a variety of, managers, coaches, chairmen, players, whatever, and also people from other sports, is it does feel like football is a bit one-dimensional in terms of, I think it's getting better, but I think it's a bit one-dimensional in how it approaches like individuals, in terms of it doesn't feel like some managers and coaches take the time to just have a quick chat with their players individually to get a feel of how they are, and then they can work out the best way to help them develop as footballers. It's almost like they're kind of lumped in as a team.
Yeah.
I don't know. You'd know better than me, obviously, but I'm just going from the sort of outside.
No, you're absolutely right. Every single player brings something different based on their individualism. So I think that's where you're right. People make a lot of assumptions about me, but it's taught me, even though it hurt at the time when I was younger, I don't mind being hurt like that now, because I use that pain to make sure I don't make assumptions about any other teammates, about any other, when I do go in, because I do want to go into coaching and management in the future, hopefully. I know that don't just jump to conclusions. Don't assume. We all do it every day in life.
Exactly what I was going to say. everybody makes assumptions. Everyone stereotypes people to a certain degree. Everyone does it just day to day. I reckon everybody makes several assumptions about people every day, whether they verbalize them or they think them all the time.
Which is okay, and it's only going to be natural. But as long as you learn that self-awareness of when you do it,
self-awareness,
and when it's gonna be like damaging to other people, I think that's when you need the self-awareness.
100%. Yeah, self-awareness is the absolute best way to kind of describe that. It's all right, and this is what frustrates me a little bit about like particularly like social media and media today, is people are so quick to kind of jump on what people say or think, and it's like, just have a bit of self-awareness and have a bit of just, I can't think of the word, which is going to bug me. I'll think of it in about 10 minutes time when we're talking about something else. But like, people just need to, it's like a lack of humanity almost. Like, people just are so keen to criticize on things like social media that they don't take into it. They almost don't look at it. Like, if it was a family member or a friend, you'd like to think that they'd look at it from that person's point of view before they just jumped in and said some horrific stuff which goes around on social media. Whereas on social media, they just jump in and just say it.
And there was this one point on social media where I thought, I'm not going to post much, like, because whatever you post, it's just going to be judged or assumed. But then you learn that even on social media and in life, in person, people have their own perceptions, and you cannot control how they perceive what you say or what you do. So why should you be bothered about what they think? So if you have a post that you want to post and you want to try and get the message across, and they perceive it in how they like think, let them perceive it that way.
I saw a post the other day from what was she? I think she was like a girl, and I think she might be like a judo, like an Olympic judo lady, and she posted like a picture, because you've got to post a picture on Instagram, of course. So she posted a picture of her having just finished in the gym doing weights or whatever, but the caption was actually about like mental health and suicide. Like, she was trying to reach, because she had quite a big following, she was trying to reach a certain demographic of people who might be struggling at the moment. And all it was just people focusing on the picture, and it was a combination of kind of blokes saying how fit she looked or whatever, and then another kind of group of people saying, oh, why are you posting pictures which you've got you're half naked? And she wasn't half naked anyway, not that it matters, but she was, she just had like gym gear on, and it was just like, Jesus Christ, talk about being like lacking self-awareness. And all those people who had just jumped in because they felt the need they have to say something to this person, but a very small percentage of those hundreds of comments had actually commented on what the post was about. It was all so focused on this, like, something completely different, which was and I kind of looked at it and I was just like, that's why I don't like social media, because it's just but you're right in what you said, is even in day-to-day life, people make assumptions, people judge you, people have got their own perception of who you are, of who other people are. So why shouldn't you?
It's like that post that I made recently about mental health. I mean, I got tons of messages, and I mean, many of the messages thought people were trying to reach out to me because they thought that I was struggling now. That wasn't the point of the message, because I was in a good state to be able to post that and to be able to be vulnerable. But I got so many different perceptions and different responses, and it was quite interesting because I wasn't letting their responses affect the reason why I actually made the post, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Like, differences of how people perceive what you can put is quite interesting. So I can't remember when you came on the Andy Campbell show if I still had long hair, but obviously I had shoulder length hair for a couple of years. And when I decided I was going to have a cut, I decided that I was going to shave it off, and then I was going to donate it to Wigs for Kids who are having like cancer treatment and stuff, and then raise some money for a mental health charity by doing it. Right, whatever. You know, I just wanted to, there was two things which I kind of care about. So I thought I'm going to cut my hair anyway. It's long. Let's do something with it, which is going to help people. And what I said then is, well, I had got to like a few £100 or whatever, and then I put a message up saying, if we raise a little bit more money today, I'll make a stupid video with my green screen while I've still got long hair. So like I did one in front of a waterfall or something stupid, you know, just stupid stuff, but just to try and encourage people to keep donating and raising money and stuff. And someone sent me a message on Twitter. I've deleted it now, but it was a lot, to paraphrase, it was like along the lines of like, why have you posted a picture with no top on? Why are you making these videos and trying to get clout and trying to get attention? And it was all like, and I was like, I could not get my head around why or how that person had looked at what that post was, and that's what they'd taken away from it. I couldn't understand it, and it took me ages to, like, it really bothered me. And I never replied to stuff like that because I'm not going to get into an argument with a stranger just over something stupid. But I was like, I think it was about a month later where I was like, well, it doesn't really matter what they think. Like, you raised money for charity, you cut your hair, and you did all the stuff you said you were going to do. But I found it difficult to deal with, and it was only one message, but I just couldn't get my head around it at all. Just the perception of it, because I couldn't understand where they were coming from. Like, I couldn't understand how they got that impression. But like we just said, everyone makes judgments, everyone sees things their own way.
And that's when you're living, when you're living in a state of insecurity and fear, that's when you actually think about why other people are thinking that. Whereas if you learn to deal with your insecurities and fears, you can actually get your perception where they're going to have their own perception and let them be. Yeah, which is 100%. Why, as an athlete, big followers on Instagram, on social medias, it's important that they do learn, especially young athletes, to deal with their insecurities and fears. Otherwise, them types of comments, they're going to massively impact them.
I got like a small platform and stuff, but it took me a while to not take negative comments personally. Like, I don't get many, in fairness. Like, the community which we've got around the channel is so positive, and it really kind of warms my heart, because I'll see people in the comments of the live show and they'll kind of be like checking in on each other, and if someone's struggling, and they'll be messaging, and they don't know each other in real life, they just know each other through like the channel and through the shows and stuff. But for a while I really struggled when people would say, oh, that was rubbish, or this or that, or they, or sometimes a bit harsher. Like, I took it really personally, and I almost wanted to go back and say, why do you, like, it doesn't achieve anything, does it? It just gives kind of some people that's what they want. They want you to react so that they can get into a dialogue and keep doing it. But I'm getting there. I think I still don't like it. I find it difficult, but I've only got a tiny platform.
Yeah, I'm actually lucky that mine's quite small as well, to be fair, because obviously the amount of challenges that I have had recently, I kind of needed that small platform. However, there was a couple of years ago before I went to Hibs where my old Instagram did grow quite rapidly, because I don't know if you remember, I done like a t-shirt challenge and I fell over.
Yeah, I do remember, yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, well, that went on to 433, the Instagram page, and like the amount of followers that like my account grew and attracted loads of weird people, to be honest, like very, very strange, like sending me strange messages and it's not that I had insecurities to deal with that. I didn't want that type of audience on my platform. So
Yeah.
probably quite impulsive for me to delete it, because that having a platform that was a little bit larger could have benefited me. But I'm
Yeah.
happy that I started fresh.
Okay. So how many followers did you have on that one, on the previous platform then? You must have had quite a few.
I think it went up to 6,000-7,000, but
yeah, it's like there's a lot of people in it, like
but that was
viewing
in
your
the space
content
that was
each
in the
day.
space of 1 hour though.
Jesus.
It was just
I bet you had some right weirdos on there. No offense
yeah,
to these people, but I bet you did. I just know it. Just because some of the messages
yeah.
I get, and like, if I was a female, like I hate to think some of the stuff I would get sent, because I say that based on what I get sent, just on my like small platform and stuff. Like some of the stuff I get sent is unreal,
Yeah.
and I just delete it and stuff and whatever. But like I just think, God, if I'm getting that as like a 40-year-old guy who doesn't particularly talk about anything controversial, imagine what like 18, 19, 20-year-old girls who are just posting about their life and vlogging.
Yeah.
I hate to think what sort of stuff they have
Do you
to put
know
up with.
the weird messages and stuff didn't bother me too much? Do you know what was the biggest thing that bothered me? It was sort of like overshadowing the value of my Instagram.
Yeah.
Like the people that I did want to reach, the target audience that I did want to reach,
Getting lost within the numbers.
the type of posts that I wanted to make. So that's kind of why I deleted it, because I was just attracting like people who wanted to watch funny videos, and that's not really what my Instagram's about.
No. Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? You've got to make a decision. And I think it's quite a brave decision in some ways for you, because like as a footballer, you kind of, that is part and parcel of it. You need to build your profile up. So to kind of just one day go, right, no, I'm getting rid of it.
Well, I actually had no Instagram when I was at Hibs, and it was quite nice because I could really just like enjoy being there with the girls. But we were also in COVID, so
Yeah.
it was very difficult to get to know the team without the social media, because that's how people were communicating, and that's how people were like watching what people were interested in. So I did decide to get it back and start to grow it again.
So let's go back to sort of the period where you went to Newcastle from Sunderland, and then you ended up going back to Sunderland. Was that a difficult decision for someone who's a Newcastle fan to leave Newcastle and go to Sunderland, or was it just this is where my career needs to go, so this is where it's going to go?
Decision where my career needs to go. I was ambitious. I only went to Newcastle to get a bit of confidence again. And it's kind of spiraled all over the place, to be honest, because I had a spell in Florida. I went to go study in Florida for a couple of months after I broke up with my deaf boyfriend. A bit of self-reflection, but then realizing I wasn't actually quite ready for that academics yet. I loved the football there, but I wasn't quite ready to really dig deep and study. So that's when I decided to come back to Sunderland, and everything went all well and good up until I was 21 years old. And I'll be honest, that's when I dealt with my first breakdown. My first mental breakdown was at the time when I got offered a full-time professional contract when we were in the Super League. And you'd think a girl who's talented, been working hard to be a pro footballer, she would relish that moment, but I just said this wasn't right, and I turned it down, and I went to coach in California for a few months. Stopped playing football.
That must have been like quite obviously difficult, but like quite a surreal period in your life, because like you said, that's something that you've worked on and worked towards, something you've wanted to do since you were 5 years old. So then to walk away from that when you finally kind of get that offer, that must have been something which you would have had to, and you know, I'm sure you thought about it from all sorts of angles and stuff like that. But that must have been a really difficult period in your life for you to walk away from that.
It gets me emotional. Probably the most difficult experience of my life, because it's like, until you go through a breakdown, you don't know pain. When you experience the scientific and chemical changes in your body, but that, with those moments, is the growth, because you understand so much about life. And having time to take away from football to really just look at the world without having football in your life, and understanding people as well as yourself. And I think that's where I transformed as a player, because taking the time away from football, I went from being the emotional footballer to being the leader who understands people, who understands not only people but my own emotions, and to be able to control them too. And I've just had a moment there, and we all go through those moments where you feel a sudden rush of emotion, but to be able to consciously breathe through it and understand it. And
yeah, it's different. It's hard, isn't it? Like, and I think it's understanding what it is as well, like, and being able to, like you say, breathe through it, control it. And I think everybody gets that. It's, you know, and I'm sure, you know, some people get it to different varying degrees. Some days from me watching just some ridiculous video on Facebook, and it'll just get me, and I feel like a rush of emotion, and it could be
from a certain time in your life. Yeah. Well, I'll be completely honest. Yeah. I mean, I talk about the financial side of why I came away from Sunderland to Switzerland, but it was that same emotion that stopped me from playing football in the first time, of why I actually came here. I'm lucky that I didn't stop playing again, to be honest. I'm lucky that I've gained the mental strength, because it could have actually forced me to stop playing again. But I'm thankful that I've self-educated to gain enough resilience and mental strength to keep going, because I'm not stopping now. I'm going to make the most of every single day of my playing career, because that's where you're going to get the opportunities for where you finish also. When I was living at home, I was thinking far too much about the future, about what am I going to do after football. I'm 27 now. But when you learn to live day by day, that's when you actually get opportunities come and flood you.
Yeah, embrace it a little bit more. I think sometimes people they're so focused on getting to point A that they don't enjoy the ride along the way.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I don't know if you can still hear me. My camera's just...
Yeah, your camera's froze, but I can hear you.
That's all right. I'll switch over to my other camera now. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about sort of... So we touched a bit on like some of the difficulties that you had. But I want to talk about some of the kind of positive experiences you've had as well. Like, obviously, you've played for Sunderland, you've played for Newcastle, you've played for Hibs. Tell me talk to me about some of the kind of the positive sides of that, the people you've met and things like this.
Do you know what? I think you don't necessarily understand the positive impacts that people have on you until you come away from the environment. Like when I was at Hibs, the assistant coach, Roddy, he was such a caring and understanding person, where you're moving away from home, and I was in the pandemic, living away from home on a part-time contract. And by the way, I was offered a coaching role alongside my part-time contract, and I didn't get that. So there was one challenge. And when you have people who can be there to support you through those challenges, you come away and you think, wow, that, like, the emotion that meant a lot. But I think also learning from other players. You don't realise how much you learn from them players until you reflect on something or you come across a situation when you're away from them and you think, oh, I actually learned that from them. So Joelle Murray, the captain for Hibs, I learned so much from her. But then I also see the achievements of the young players of, like, for example, one of the players at Hibs who maybe didn't get an opportunity so much because I was there, who she's getting more game time now, and I'd like to think that I helped educate her. I'd like to think that the young players at Sunderland, in fact, I know for a fact that they used to watch me because I've got that sort of awareness where I can see them watching me and learning from me, which is tough because when you're going through difficulties yourself and you don't feel yourself, you want to be able to teach them what's right. And I believe truly they were watching me train. It's kind of what I touched about on my social media, how I'm training with it looks like I'm training with motivation, but really I'm just trying to train to get some endorphins in me, some energy, because my mental health was so low. But they didn't know that's why I was training.
No, of course. They see you as they see you training intensely and hard, and perhaps they're looking at it from one way, but actually, and it goes back to what we were saying about perceptions and assumptions of people. Just it's an automatic thing, isn't it? Like you see someone training like that, and you assume that's why they're doing it, but actually, there could be more to it.
And you look at the story of Gary Speed's mental health too. That was something that was really getting him, because the younger players were looking at him and they didn't actually understand the difficulties he was going through, and he couldn't actually tell them because they're looking to him for some inspiration. And when you can't inspire them in the way that you want to, because you've got so many negative feelings and fears and doubts within you, and you're not your usual positive self, it makes you even 10 times worse.
100%. What was your favourite thing about living in Scotland?
The beach. I lived on Portobello Beach, and I used to take my book every morning and just sit at the rocks with the waves. And for me, that's peace. That's nice. That's why I love here, because I've got the lake.
Yeah, see, we go to the beach all the time, and we prefer to go when it's raining, just because it's quiet and it's it's one of those things I really, really enjoy. Going to the beach at like weird times. We all do. Our kids love it as well, and we'll just sit on the beach, and it'll be like really dark, or it'll be raining, and just find it relaxing. However, when I asked you that question about Scotland, I was not expecting for you to say that your favorite thing about Scotland is the beach. I gotta say, I'll be honest with you.
Honestly, Portobello Beach is one of the most beautiful beaches ever, and I think more people need to know about it. Absolutely,
sounds like a phenomenal place. I'm gonna have to ask my really Kev McNaughton about that. What about just like the Sunderland and Newcastle period where you went Sunderland, Newcastle, Sunderland? What's your biggest regret about that period?
Not being open and honest with people, with teammates, for teammates to understand me. Because with me not being honest and showing my true personality, which is the kind person that I am, a lot of people misunderstood me, which led to assumptions, and them assumptions impacted my mental health even more when I was going through my own personal issues. However, we all have to self-reflect and go through periods where we have to be quiet within ourselves. So, but it's important that you are understood by teammates, because that's what develops the trust on the pitch.
What was the assumptions that made about you, if you don't mind me asking?
I think because I'm a confident player, I think a lot of people just thought I was a little bit egotistical, and maybe there was some sort of false ego there, but naturally there's going to be a false ego if you're going through periods of pain.
Yeah, like I gotta say, from our conversations and stuff, you're possibly one of the least egotistical people I've had the pleasure of speaking to. It's not
Thank
what
you.
you're about. But like, do you know what I mean? Like, you're not like we had a chat and stuff, and we had a chat before, and we've talked over text and stuff when we were trying to sort this out and that. And you've always been really sound to me, and like we'll have a chat and whatever. And like, doesn't seem to be much of an ego there in terms of like you're not difficult to talk to. Do you know what I mean? And it's that's a weird one, but like you say, it's perceptions, and it's different for everyone. What is like how I'm trying to think how to word this without, because I don't want to put you in a position. I'm not asking you to name people, but I'm interested in the kind of experiences you've had with coaches. So like, what difficulties have you had with coaches, and is there periods where you feel like they could have dealt with you differently to get the best out of you on the football pitch?
Do you know what? Like, I'll actually hand on heart say Carlton Fairweather dealt with me in the wrong way, but also the right way, because he taught me that I needed to delve into why I'm so emotional. And because obviously he was a centre back, I've had some of my best defensive coaching from him. But also because he was so used to coaching boys and being a little bit more brutal, like it was wrong for them emotions. And probably one of the causes of why my mental health and like why I stopped playing football, but I'll be grateful for him because that's the best thing that ever happened to me. So even though he dealt with me the wrong way, it's taught me so much. Honestly, there's been so many situations, because I think I am a difficult character to be able to deal with the right way. In fact, is there a right way or is there a wrong way?
How would you deal with yourself? If you were the manager, how would you deal with Charlotte Potts?
Give me freedom, give me independence. Talk to me as a person, want to understand me. Yeah, I think I need freedom.
You said something really interesting there. You said, try to understand me. And I think on a basic human level, just out of football as well, everybody wants to be understood, and everybody wants to feel like they're understood. And I think that's like almost like a missed trait, I suppose, within sport, is like, if the person you're coaching in whatever sport it may be, if they feel like you genuinely understand them, they are going to take in the information you give them more fervently, and they're going to listen to what you have to say more, but also they're going to feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
And then when the criticism is needed, or the negative side of something is needed, they're more likely to not take it really personally and kind of get offended and go on the defensive and stuff like that. But equally, I think that can work as well as if you don't understand someone, but you're trying to, that effort can go a long way as well.
And I think that's what was missing. I can hand on heart say I think I was missing that effort from coaches to really dig deep and delve into my emotions, because if I'm the type of coach where if I come across a player who's a little bit emotional, I want to delve into what's causing these emotions. Why are they emotional? Can I do something to help them understand these emotions? Because I haven't had a coach who's necessarily helped me understand my emotions. I've been forced to deal with it in my own way, if that makes sense.
But like, with the female side of the game then, so like, in say Sunderland and Newcastle and these sorts of clubs, on the male side, they've got all sorts of backroom staff, including access to things like psychiatrists and and this, that, and the other. They got access to everything, I know. So like, on the female side of things, what's the backroom staff look like? Like, what sort of things would you have access to through the football club?
It's getting there. I think the fact that like at Sunderland we were only just starting to get access to the psychologist and things like that, but there was never that access when I was growing up. It was only just recently when I left. And I think that overwhelms a lot of players because it's like you've never had that psychologist there before. So you think almost like, whoa, I don't
Right
think I
there,
want to
yeah.
go talk to the psychologist. But really, you don't understand it's actually beneficial.
Yeah.
But for
I think
me,
they
I
should
think
make all the players do it. So then there's no
singling
kind of
people out.
stigma to it, and or
Yeah.
where you're asking individual players to go there, or they feel like, oh, I would like to go there, but they don't want to because they're the only one who's going there. If that makes sense. If everyone goes individually, it's
And do you know
compulsory
what?
thing.
I'll be completely honest. The best thing that's happened to me is finding life coaches. Like I've got a couple of people who I go to about certain things, and I mean, it's so important that you have someone who can mentor you and guide you through personal things that can have an impact on your football also. And I'll actually openly say this: I don't know what I'd be. I don't know where I would be without Gary Bennett. Like as soon as I came back from Canada and I met him through show races and the red card, like the amount of support that I've got from him through when I started my coaching business, it started through him helping me with that, to him helping me with things for my own playing career, and then developing that amount of trust that you can talk to about why things are actually impacting you is so important because you can't bottle things up. A problem shared is a problem halved.
Absolutely. I think it's vital to have those people in your life that you can you can talk through stuff with. You can if you've got like a crisis of confidence, a crisis in life, something, could be anything, could be ceiling in your kitchen's collapsed, but just having someone who you can go to and especially if you're like a young adult who's never had to deal with that type of thing, that's difficult. And I think that's something which people sometimes forget. Like when we spoke to David Cottrell, one of the things he said was when he had a deadline day move to one of the clubs, I think it was Wigan. So his agent and whatever, they were pushing for the move, the clubs were pushing for the move, big money move, and then suddenly he had gone from Wales to Manchester or Wigan or somewhere. He was just in this big city with his wife, and they were like 19, 20 with a young baby in a hotel, didn't know the area, didn't know any people, had never had a mortgage or lived on their own. They'd never paid bills. They had no idea like what to do, how to go about finding somewhere to live, and they just found themselves there in a hotel, and everyone who had been around them in the build up to the move just disappeared. The agents were dealing with other moves, the clubs, they're doing their thing, and that's always I always kind of remember that when he said that, because I thought, 19, 20 is no age. No. And to be in a strange place is difficult to deal with. Like even for you, like you're 27 now, and you said like you've talked about how you've kind of developed coping strategies, you've developed ways to deal with stuff and whatnot. Like you're in a foreign country. Imagine what that would have been like at the age of 19, being in a foreign country.
Especially the way that I first got here, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So when I first arrived, I had travelled all day, 2 trains to London, then a flight from London to Milan, and then I was thinking I was getting picked up from Milan. So my phone had died and I didn't, because I was only told that I was coming here a day before that my flight was. I had to rush packing, so I didn't have a charger for coming, like a European plug. And I got a message on my phone, and my phone was only on like 2%, saying you need to get the train to Lugano. So I've never been here before. I need to get a train, which is an hour and a half. And from there, nobody picked me up from the train station at Lugano to the apartment. I had to get the address of the apartment and write it on the back of my hand and get a taxi from the train station to the apartment because my phone was dead. Now imagine a 19-year-old.
Do all that. They wouldn't be like a lot of 19-year-olds wouldn't be able to do that.
I mean, my stress, I coped with the stress quite well, but I was so tired after traveling for like 10 hours.
God, yeah.
My eyes on the train, and I had to stay awake for the stop.
Yeah, you don't fall asleep through your stop, do you? And be in a
I know.
completely another even further place away. Jesus.
I know.
So how did that move? We'll kind of finish on the Lugano. Like, how did your move to them come about?
So I knew an agent who was acting for me before Hibs, who was so eager to get me to Italy. And I mean, one of my dreams is to play in Serie A. I'm a defender, art of defending. Maldini, I absolutely adore Maldini's style. And Lugano is very close to Milan, so I'm thinking if I'm playing in Switzerland and if I'm close to like Italy, it might lead to a move there. So my contract's due to expire at the end of this season, end of May, and I really don't know where I'm going to end up. I obviously wouldn't turn down a Super League move. Once I've experienced some spiritual growth, of course, any player would want to smash the Super League, and I'm well confident in my ability to be able to handle that pressure there. Yeah. I want a big club. For me, the amount that I've endured, and we talked about the psychological help, I want something that's going to provide me professional support for the future now. Yeah, and something that's going to lead me down a good career path with the amount of wisdom that I've accumulated on the journey. But Serie A club, a good Serie A club, Super League club, I don't know.
There is a choice then.
Maybe
I wouldn't.
You
had a choice between the two, a Serie A club and a Super League club. Same terms, conditions, or whatever. You just got to choose.
I would never know until the moment came.
Depends on the club, doesn't it?
Depends on the club. Depends on the moment. Depends how I feel at that time and place.
So, are you someone, when you would say you had that decision to make, just say, hypothetically, are you someone who would kind of go over that decision like over and over in your head and speak to maybe your parents or your friends and kind of go through it and the pros and cons and that side of things? Or are you someone who would kind of look at both sides and then just go with what you feel within you?
A bit of both. I talk to close friends, family. I look at some pros and cons, but I think mainly I go on gut instinct and how I feel at that time and place. I mean, for example, I turned down a Serie A club in this transfer window because my mental state obviously wasn't ready to play against Juventus in Milan. I thought Switzerland would have been the better challenge. So like I say, it depends all on how you feel at that time and place, and your body, the way your body works scientifically, I think you can tell on gut instinct.
So with these shows, Charlotte, what we do is we ask one final question, which is it can be as complex or as simple as you make it, I suppose. Everyone interprets it different, so it'll be interesting to see how you interpret. But Charlotte Potts, what is the meaning of life?
Living with peace and purpose and intention. not overthinking, not worrying, and just spreading love.
Good stuff. Listen, Charlotte, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. It's been really interesting. I've had a good time. It's been an interesting conversation. Been thoroughly enthralled by it. I got to say, it's been good. I've enjoyed it. Thank you for your time.
I enjoyed it.
Tell people where they can find you on social media and all that stuff.
On Instagram, it is charlotte.potts23. I'm also on LinkedIn, and my Twitter is Charlotte with 2 E's 23.
Here we go. No weirdos.
No weirdos. I can deal with weirdos now. I've came across plenty.
Yeah. No, Charlotte, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Guys, please do subscribe, youtube.com/AcePodcastNation. New episodes of My Story every Tuesday. Rodri Giggs on football every Thursday live. Danny Batten Fried Show every Friday. Plus, we have numerous exclusive interviews, including we had Commonwealth champion Gavin Gwynn in the studio for an exclusive interview last week. So check that out before he has his British title fight coming up. But until next week, bid you farewell. Cheers. Undesirable. I do what I want when I want and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air. That's how I roll. I got tons of soul. I'm a true collectible. Famous, also famous, #1 desirable. I do what I want when I want and how I want it.